The crystal chandelier trembled as her final note hung in the air. 60 pairs of eyes stared in disbelief at the young woman in the simple black uniform standing beside the grand piano. No one moved. Alexander Harrington's champagne flute slipped through his fingers, shattering against the marble floor, but even that didn't break the spell her voice had cast. "Who is she?" someone whispered. Alexander couldn't tear his gaze away from her face. The maid's daughter. The girl he'd challenged as a joke. The woman who'd just turned his world upside down with nothing but her voice and a Mozart aria he'd been certain she couldn't possibly know. And the promise he'd made echoed in his mind, "Sing this Mozart and I'll marry you." Words spoken in jest that now felt like prophecy. 3 hours earlier, Elena Romano had been just another invisible worker preparing for the Harrington family's annual charity gala. At 24, she'd spent most of her life watching her mother, Sophia, serve the wealthy family with quiet dignity. "Remember to stay in the background," Sophia reminded her daughter. "Mr. Harrington doesn't like to see the staff during events." What her mother didn't know was that Elena had been secretly practicing in the Harringtons' music room for months. During the family's frequent travels, she would slip in and play the magnificent Steinway grand piano, singing the arias she'd studied in school but rarely had the chance to perform anymore. As the first guests began to arrive, Elena retreated to the kitchen with the other staff. From the doorway, she watched Alexander Harrington, the 30-year-old son of billionaire developer James Harrington, hosting tonight's event to raise funds for music education in underprivileged schools. While serving champagne, Elena heard laughter from a group gathered around the piano. Alexander sat at the keys, playing a simple melody while a young woman attempted to sing along. "Who's next?" Alexander called out. "Anyone brave enough to try some real music?" A silver-haired man, Maestro Vincenzo, the renowned conductor, shook his head. "Young people today don't appreciate the classics. I doubt anyone here could handle Mozart." "I'll make it interesting," Alexander said. "I'll play the accompaniment to Queen of the Night from the Magic Flute. If anyone here can sing it properly, I'll..." He paused dramatically. "I'll marry them on the spot." "I'll sing it," Elena said before she could stop herself. The room fell silent as heads turned toward the maid holding a tray of champagne. Alexander's smile faltered. "Excuse me?" "I said I'll sing it," she repeated, her voice steadier now. Someone took the tray from her hands, and suddenly she was being ushered toward the piano. Alexander's expression had shifted from surprise to amusement. "Well, this is unexpected," he said. "The maid's daughter wants to sing Mozart." He gestured toward the space beside the piano. "The floor is yours, Miss Romano," she said. "Elena Romano." Alexander positioned his fingers over the keys. "You understand this is Der Holly Rake? One of the most difficult coloratura soprano pieces ever written?" Elena met his gaze directly. "I understand perfectly, Mr. Harrington." As she navigated the intricate runs and trills, climbing to the piece's famously high F6, she opened her eyes to find the entire room staring at her in astonishment. Alexander's expression had transformed completely, his fingers now moving automatically across the keys. When she finished, the silence was absolute. Then came the sound of breaking glass as Alexander's champagne flute slipped from his grasp. "Who is she?" The whisper broke the spell, and suddenly the room erupted in applause. Maestro Vincenzo was the first to reach her, taking her hands in his. "My dear, that was extraordinary. Where did you study?" Before she could answer, Alexander was beside them. "I believe we need to talk," he said quietly, guiding her to his father's study. Inside, Alexander turned to face her. "You've been working in this house for how long?" 8 years, Elena answered. "My mother has been your family's housekeeper for 25 years. And in all that time, no one knew you could sing like that?" His voice held genuine curiosity now. "Why would they? No one asks the help about their hobbies or education." Alexander ran a hand through his hair. I deserve that. He studied her for a moment. Where did you learn to sing Mozart like that? I have a degree in vocal performance from State University. I was on scholarship. Then why are you working as a maid? Elena finished for him. Because degrees in classical music don't pay medical bills. My mother needed surgery 2 years ago. A knock at the door interrupted them. James Harrington entered with Sophia Romano close behind him. What's going on here? James demanded. Alexander straightened. Father, have you ever heard Elena sing? James glanced at Elena dismissively. Of course not. Why would I? Because she just performed the Queen of the Night aria perfectly in our living room. James looked skeptical. Is this some kind of joke? Mr. Harrington, Sophia interjected timidly. I apologize for my daughter's behavior. Her place? Alexander interrupted. Father, she sang Mozart perfectly. She's a trained classical vocalist working as household staff because she needed to pay for her mother's medical bills. That's not our concern, James said coldly. It should be, Alexander countered. Especially tonight, when we're supposedly raising money for arts education. Before his father could respond, Alexander turned to Elena. Will you sing again? Something else from your repertoire? Elena hesitated, looking at her mother's frightened face. 25 years of service, of keeping her head down, of surviving. But also 25 years of dreams deferred. Yes, she said finally. I will. The next hour passed in a blur. Elena sang 3 more pieces, and even James Harrington's stony expression had gradually softened. When she finished, Maestro Vincenzo approached her with his card. Call my office tomorrow, he said. We have an opening in our Young Artists program that I believe you would be perfect for. Later, Alexander found Elena and her mother in the kitchen. I owe you both an apology, he began. My behavior earlier was inexcusable. What happens now? Elena asked. Are we fired? Alexander looked shocked. Fired? God, no. Elena, I want to offer you a position as the artistic director for the Harrington Foundation's New Music Initiative. And my mother? Mrs. Romano will continue as our housekeeper with a substantial raise, if she wishes. Elena felt tears threatening. After years of struggle, this sudden change seemed impossible to believe. And what about your father? She asked. He didn't seem pleased. Alexander's expression hardened slightly. My father will come around. He hesitated. And speaking of truth, there's something else we need to discuss. Elena tensed. What is it? I made a rather public declaration before you sang. Something about marriage. Elena felt heat rise to her cheeks. That was obviously a joke. Was it? Alexander's gaze held hers. I've never heard anyone sing like you did tonight. Alexander, you can't possibly be serious. You don't even know me. I'd like to, he said simply. Not as the son of your employer, but as a person who was deeply moved by your talent and courage tonight. A month later, Elena was preparing for her debut at Carnegie Hall. Alexander had kept his distance personally while supporting her professionally, respecting her need to process the dramatic shift in her circumstances. 2 weeks before the concert, Elena overheard an argument between Alexander and his father. This is absurd, Alexander. James shouted. You're jeopardizing everything for some maid with a pretty voice. She's not some maid, father, Alexander responded. And this isn't about her voice. This is about recognizing talent regardless of background. You barely know her, James said. I know enough, Alexander replied. And I intend to know more. That evening, Alexander invited Elena to dinner at a small Italian restaurant. As they shared wine and pasta, conversation flowed easily until Elena asked the question that had been bothering her. "There's something you're not telling me about why you've taken such an interest in me. Is it just because of how I sang that night?" Alexander was quiet for a moment. "No," he finally said. "Not entirely. Do you know why your mother came to work for my family 25 years ago? She needed a job. She was a young immigrant with few options." "That's true, but it's not the whole story. My mother hired her personally. They knew each other before, in Italy. Your mother was a student at the Milan Conservatory the same time as my mother." Elena stared at him in shock. "My mother never studied music. That's not what the records show. Sofia Romano was enrolled at the Milan Conservatory from 1998 to 2000. The night of the Carnegie Hall concert arrived. Elena had chosen to perform Vici d'arte from Puccini's Tosca, a piece about living for art and love. As she took the stage, she saw her mother in the front row beside James Harrington, both looking uncomfortable but present. Her performance earned a standing ovation, and the reception afterward was a blur of congratulations until Alexander pulled her aside. "Elena, I've found out more about your mother and mine. They weren't just fellow students. They were best friends. And there's more." "Alexander." James Harrington interrupted them, approaching with Sofia. "A word, please." They found an empty dressing room, and James closed the door behind them. "Alexander has been digging into the past," James began. "A past that should remain buried." Sofia stepped forward, taking Elena's hands. "There's something I should have told you long ago, my darling. Something I've kept hidden to protect you." "What is it?" Elena whispered. "When I left the conservatory, it wasn't just because I fell in love with your father. It was because I was pregnant." Elena felt the room tilt. "I don't understand." "You were born 7 months after I married your father," Sofia continued gently. "He knew. He loved you as his own. But biologically—" "No," Elena whispered, turning to James Harrington, seeing his features with new eyes. "It can't be." "I was young and foolish," James said stiffly. "Already engaged to Catherine. When Sofia told me she was pregnant, I panicked. Catherine helped me," Sofia explained. "She arranged everything, my marriage to Antonio, our passage to America. And later, when Antonio died, she brought us into her home. As servants," Elena said bitterly. "Her husband's mistress and his illegitimate daughter, right under her roof." Alexander had been silent, his face shocked. "Father, did you know? All this time, did you know Elena was your daughter?" James couldn't meet his son's eyes. "Catherine made me promise never to acknowledge it." The revelation hit Elena like a physical blow. Not only was she James Harrington's daughter, she was Alexander's half-sister. The growing feelings between them, the connection they'd both felt, it was familial, not romantic. "I need air," Elena gasped, pushing past them. Outside, Alexander found her. "Elena, I'm so sorry. I had no idea." "How could you?" she said, her voice breaking. "None of us knew the whole truth." "I understand if you hate us all now," Alexander said quietly. "I don't hate you," Elena replied. "You're the only one who tried to uncover the truth." James and Sofia joined them. "I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness," James said. "But I want you to know that I was proud of you tonight." "Except you couldn't admit it," Elena challenged. "Even tonight, you couldn't say, 'That's my daughter.'" "I've been a coward for 25 years, James acknowledged. "But I'm asking for a chance to make amends." "I need time," Elena finally said. "This is too much to process all at once." 3 months later, Elena performed at the Milan Conservatory, where her mother's musical journey had begun. She had invited them all, Sofia, James, and Alexander, unsure if they would come. As she prepared to step onto the stage, a stagehand handed her a small bouquet with a note, "From your family, with love and pride." Elena walked out to face the audience and saw them in the front row, her mother, James, and Alexander, all watching her with expressions of nervous anticipation. When she finished her performance, the audience erupted in applause, but Elena had eyes only for the three people in the front row, standing with tears streaming down their faces. Later, at a small reception, James approached her. "That was magnificent, Elena." "Thank you," she said, finding it easier to meet his eyes now. Alexander joined them. "The foundation board is asking when you'll return. The music program needs its director." Elena smiled. "I'd like to establish a scholarship program for talented students from disadvantaged backgrounds. In my mother's name." As the evening progressed, Elena found herself standing alone with Alexander on a balcony overlooking the city. "Are you happy here?" he asked. "I'm finding my way," she answered honestly. "Learning who I am now that I know the truth." "And who is that?" "I'm still Elena Romano. My father, Antonio, gave me that name and his love. But I'm also learning what it means to be a Harrington." "I've been thinking about your joke that night," Elena said. "Sing this Mozart and I'll marry you." Alexander winced. "Not my finest moment." "No," she agreed. "But in a way, it changed everything. If you hadn't challenged me, we might never have learned the truth." "Do you regret it?" he asked. "Learning who you really are?" Elena looked through the glass doors at her mother and James, watching them with a mixture of regret and hope. "No," she said finally. "The truth is always better than a comfortable lie. Even when it hurts." Inside, Maestro Vincenzo raised a glass. "To Elena Romano, whose extraordinary talent has brought us all together tonight. And to the power of music to heal old wounds and create new beginnings." As glasses clinked around her, Elena felt a sense of peace. The journey that had begun with a challenge, "Sing this Mozart and I'll marry you," had led her not to a fairy tale romance, but to something perhaps more valuable, her authentic self. And that was worth more than any billionaire's promise. If you enjoyed this emotional journey of discovery and redemption, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more heartfelt stories that explore family secrets and the power of talent to transform lives.